Hi guys, welcome to In the Oven with Morgan. Fun fact, I'm actually a trained pastry chef. I went to school at Johnson & Wales University for 2 years, worked with tons of chefs, went and worked in Disney World. So we're going to make my famous turtle pie, and I'm actually gonna have Keith make it. And the reason why, because it might seem a little intimidating, but it's very simple.
And if you didn't know, I'm not a pastry chef, as you can tell by my smile.
So first things first, we're gonna start with our sugar. And while he's doing this, I'm gonna explain some other things. So Keith, go ahead and grab your sugar.
All right.
And you're going to sprinkle, you're gonna turn it on about medium heat.
All right. Let's get this thing going.
Perfect. You're gonna sprinkle a thin layer in the center of the pot. That's okay, keep just, yeah, all like an even layer.
Oh, even that. All right.
Perfect. Now you're just gonna let that sit and you're not gonna touch it. And you're not, you can stop now.
Good? All
Yep.
right.
You're going to add more as it starts to melt. This is called the dry method. So there's two different types of method in baking, dry and wet. Wet is when you dump all of the water and all of the sugar into a boiling pot and you bring it to a boil. This, we're just gonna let it sit and we're gonna slowly start to let it melt. Now, while this is melting, we are going to use a regular pie shell. You can buy them at the grocery store. I personally like to use Oreo shells. It gives the chocolate mousse, is basically what we're making. Kind of more of a rich chocolate taste. Easy way, you can find recipes online. Basically, it's 24 Oreos. Chop them up, add some butter, and you have a pie shell. As you can see, it's starting to melt a little bit. So this is the perfect time that Keith is going to add another layer of sugar over top. And we're going to keep doing this. While he's doing that, we're gonna get our pie shell ready. So some recipes will tell you to add your nuts after you've made your caramel mix. I prefer to put them already into the pie shell so that you don't get a clump in certain sections. Now this butter and this cream have been sitting out for about 2 hours. I like the dairy to stay a little bit more closer to room temperature rather than being stuck in the fridge, so that the hot from the caramel, you're gonna wanna add more.
Oh.
From the hot from the caramel and the dairy, that they don't instantly make a giant ball of caramel. For our
How much do I add here?
that's enough.
Okay.
Just enough, a thin layer, just to keep making it melt.
Okay.
As you saw, I just turned it down just a little bit. I had turned it up just to get the sugar to melt a little bit better. If you start to see that it's turning too brown, just turn your heat down a little bit so that you don't burn your sugar. Ways to know that it's burnt: you'll smell it. That is your #1 way. So right now we're going to turn the heat down just a little bit more. You're going to add in your butter. So go ahead and grab your butter. Right here.
Okay.
And we're going to mix that in. When melting the sugar, you're going to want to avoid, go ahead.
Straight over the top?
Yep, right on top. And you're going to mix it in. When melting your sugar, you're going to want to avoid using a spatula. You just want to kind of let it evenly heat itself up. So go ahead and give that a, yep. Mix it all in. The bubble sound is perfect. While he's doing that, I'm going to bring him his cream. So you're going to melt that all the way down. It's going to get a little bit sticky. Now this next step you're going to want to do kind of fast. So once all your butter is melted, you're going to add your cream, mix it, and pour it right in the pie.
Am I ready to go?
Yep, go ahead and add your cream. You can take it off the heat now.
Okay. Pour it in a mix, right?
Pour it in a mix, yep. This part you're going to want to do fast because the cream is cold still.
Good thing we let it sit for a couple hours,
Yes.
though, right? That's kind of why.
That is perfect. Now you're going to evenly distribute it right over this pie shell. You can go a little bit faster. Now all that extra that's in the bottom of the pan, you're going to try and scrape in there. couple problem areas. Let's say your caramel hardens too fast and you get one clump in a corner. Do not touch it. It's going to be very hot. So just kind of with your spatula, you can move it around a little bit before it settles. So as you can see, it's still moving, which is good. If you have any problems, like I said, you can push the spatula. I have a bubble, so that's kind of why it looks a little bit higher than this spot. If it gets a little bit, if it's darker than this color, there's a good chance you burned it, which is, I mean, you might have a little bit bitter of a bottom. It's okay at this point. It is what it is. So it's gonna go in the freezer until we make our mousse, which is coming up next, about 10 minutes. So, okay, so now that our pie shell is in the freezer, cooling down, next we're going to work on our mousse. First up is melt the chocolate. Pro tip though, make sure all of your ingredients are measured out prior to. This will make your process a lot easier. Have you ever melted chocolate before?
I have not. I don't bake hardly ever. At
Okay,
all.
okay. So we've already...
Unless it's Pillsbury Doughboy.
That works. We've already started a pot of boiling water just for time's sake. You'll want to do this at home. You can start it as your sugar is almost done. Fire that up. So you're going to grab your bowl.
Metal bowl?
Metal bowl.
Metal bowl.
You're going to grab your chocolate.
Sure.
So your metal bowl will sit on top of your hot water. This creates a double boiler. You're going to pour in your chocolate.
Okay.
And we're going to let it melt. Now, when making melted chocolate, there's a couple different ways. You never want moisture to get into your chocolate or else your chocolate's going to get ruined. So he's going to take a towel and he's going to hold the side of the bowl and he's going to continuously stir as we evenly melt the chocolate.
You know, this is getting a little bit more melted here, but question for you. How come we put this over water instead of direct heat?
Great question. So you want to avoid what we call seizing chocolate. If you have it directly on heat or when you're microwaving it, you can also melt chocolate that way. If there's too much heat on the chocolate and it doesn't melt properly, so like evenly, it will melt too fast and you will seize it. Okay, so you're gonna bring it off. We're going to add the butter. We're gonna add melted butter in there. And you're going to stir that up. There are ways to fix a seized chocolate. It just depends on what you did. If you've added water. For this recipe, I prefer to always start again if the chocolate has already seized. Okay, so keep stirring that. That looks good. So in our recipe, which we'll have at the very end, you measure out for the second step 5 ounces of heavy cream, but we're only going to use a third of it because we're going to use the cream in a different step. So I'm going to add that in for you.
Stirring this up too?
Just keep stirring. You can go back on heat now.
Okay.
So that it'll melt it back down. Right now what we're making is called a ganache. And then the reason I haven't putting it back on the heat is, yes, the butter and the cream have both been more room temperature, but they're still cold and it's starting to harden that chocolate and we need it smooth to continue this process. So you may have a couple chunks in there. It's okay. Like I said, put it back on the heat, try and melt it back down a little bit. There are still a little bit of chunks in this chocolate. Keith, can you give it a stir so they can see what you kind of want a good ending product? There are chunks in this. It's okay. It's not too chunky, but the smoothness is great. So now we're going to add our eggs, but first we need to pasteurize them because we are not baking this pie at all, so we need to cook them. So you're going to add a little bit of the chocolate in here, and we're going to stir this as quickly as we can so that this egg heats up. Then the egg yolks will go back into the chocolate. Go ahead and dump a little bit in there. Perfect. Give that a nice stir. If your eggs, you want to avoid your eggs getting chunky. If they seal a few chunks in it, it's not the end of the world. And we're going to add this back into our ganache. And you're going to stir that all in. Okay, so we're going to remove that from the heat and we're going to let it sit on the side. And we're going to create our other 2 steps for our mousse. So go ahead and go ahead and remove that and just leave it right here. Perfect. So with this remaining cream, we're going to take that, dump it into a bowl, and we're going to hand mix it to a soft peak. Basically whipping cream, but not to a full peak. So let's go ahead and grab that.
Grab sugar?
No, the heavy cream.
Heavy cream.
Pour it in your bowl.
Alright.
And your hand mixer. You need
Come this
shimmy on
way.
down this
Come
way.
on over.
So beat it on slow. That looks perfect. And the way I know this, so you're gonna take your mixer, the blades, dip it into the cream, and as you lift it, you'll notice that a small, very soft peak forms. We're going to let this set aside and we're going to work on our meringue. Okay, so now our cream is off to the side. We're going to work on our egg whites. And our sugar, we're going to make a meringue. So go ahead and start the blender again into the egg whites.
On low?
On low again.
Alright.
Those that attended the fashion show, fun fact, this was one of the desserts I made for the tables. Now that our eggs have been mixed enough, we're going to keep mixing, but we're going to start streaming in our sugar. So go ahead and start again. Medium heat, medium mix. And slowly add in the sugar. So I had Keith turn it on high so that you want it more of a stiffer peak on this one. And it's okay, even though it's a small portion of egg whites, it's okay to like get your mixer in there so that you're getting everything on all the sides of the bowl. Go ahead and stop it. Go ahead and lift it. That's what you want. Oh, hi. So this is our nice cold, perfect pie shell. You can see that you can touch it and it's okay. Let's go add our mousse. Now that we have our pie shell back and we have all of our different ingredients ready, Keith, you're going to start to mix the heavy cream in first.
Okay, into the chocolate.
Into the chocolate, and what you're going to do is you're going to fold it in. So go ahead and scrape that bowl right on top. Perfect. And you're going to just continuously, yep, perfect. You're just going to fold the chocolate. So Keith is continuously folding it in and not stirring. And the reason you want to do that is you want to not break down all the molecules that you just mixed with your mixer while bringing all that volume up. So that looks perfect. Now you're going to add in your egg whites. And you're going to do the same thing. Pour it on top. Perfect. And then you're going to start to fold in your chocolate mixture with your whites now. Same idea. Okay, so now you can see Keith has mixed everything up to a light brown mixture. It looks great. That's perfect. You're going to go ahead and pour that right over top your pie shell. Perfect. So the only last thing I would do is I would just shake it so it gets to all the edges. We're going to go ahead and put this back into either the cooler or the freezer so that we can put our topping on. Welcome back. Our pie is in the freezer getting cold. And Keith, have you ever used one of these before?
Once when I was 12.
Okay. So you're going to lift the handle as so. I already put in heavy cream. For our whipping cream, you don't really need measurements on this part. You can just do it by taste. And that being said, I like to use vanilla in my whipping cream because it adds a little bit more flavor. Most whipping cream is just heavy cream and sugar. So go ahead and start it about midway. A little bit faster. You could throw it on high, it's okay. You're gonna wanna get to that soft peak again before you add any sugar. So if you notice that it's splashing on your counters, just go ahead and just cover it up with a towel so that you just keep it all in the bowl. So I use about a cup of cream, just a little bit over. Depending on how much topping you want to put on your pie shell, that's how much I will use because I'm going to cover the whole pie. For the sugar, it's just to taste. So everyone's taste buds are different. I like things a little bit sweeter, so we're gonna add a little bit more sugar than you would. You at home will probably want to add about a tablespoon's worth. So like I said, I like to add a little bit of vanilla. So we're gonna add probably about a teaspoon. Mix that in. Perfect. That looks great.
Did I hear the whipped cream is ready?
Yes, you did. You want to grab a spoon and try it?
I would love to.
All right. While he grabs that spoon, that's a nice texture that you want. Like we talked about stiff and soft peaks. Nice stiff peak.
Delicious.
Now we're gonna grab our mousse and we're gonna add our topping to it. Okay. So now our pie just came out of the freezer. And when you're at home, when I normally make this, if I'm going to take it to a party the next day, I will make the chocolate part the day before, but I'll make the topping the day of. And I'll leave it in the fridge overnight. And you want this nice, where you can see your finger, just barely touch the top and kind of leave an indent. If it goes through the pie, that means it's not set yet. But this is a good indication that it's set. So we're going to add our topping. A couple different ways. I've always put it right on top. When I was in school, we learned to just kind of do a dollop. So go ahead and scoop it out right on top, and then you're going to grab the spatula.
How much should I put on here?
A little bit more right there. That's perfect. You're going to take the spatula and you're going to smooth it around the pie. It's all the sides of the edges. And there you have it. Would you like to give it a try?
I'd love to give it a try.
Okay, so go ahead and grab the knife. Now
Okay.
for our purposes, because it did come out of the freezer, it's going to be a little bit hard with that caramel. So go ahead and cut. And there you have it.
So I can take a bite now, right?
Absolutely.
Oh.
Did you do good?
I did pretty good.
Okay, I think so too. Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you want to do this yourself at home, we're gonna have the kits available here very soon with El Macero Grocery. As you can follow along with the recipe, and hope to see you guys soon.